Are we live? Hey guys, what is up? I'll let you all pop in here. Happy Monday. Yay. I give you guys just a second. Hello, welcome. I just got on, so we're just letting people figure out that we're doing a live. Doo-doo-doo. I'm just paying off my credit card while we're sitting here, so I don't forget. Hopefully, everybody had a really good weekend. Let's see, I'm gonna pay. I pay my credit card off every month. I use it to get the points and then I pay it off every month. So that's what I'm doing. Yay. Okay. Hello, hello. I will probably start right around 3 minutes, just letting people figure out that we're live. Because I didn't announce it today. And I am just uploading a few things that we will talk about. Hello, how are you guys? We're just about to get started here. Listening while you work. Good morning. Hello, how are you all? All right, we are starting soon.
Into that at this point because it's
It was pretty nice. It was actually, well, I feel like I always say things too soon. It was actually more of a bit of a quiet weekend. I know that sounds bonkers because do we really have any quiet weekends? We kind of don't, but comparatively, it was rather quiet. I will say this: I follow a guy who's really close with New York City politics. He lives in New York City, and he goes around and sort of talks about what's happening on the street with the migrant crisis. And he did say it is a lot slower. The buses coming to New York City are slowing down rather significantly. That could be because of what's happening right now in Texas. They're allowing their National Guard to make arrests.
President, it's laughable that you would.
Although the Biden administration is attempting to sue them, they essentially said, we don't care that you're trying to sue, we're going to do it anyway. which I respect.
It's controversial.
John Fetterman. Tyler just came back from Albuquerque Comic Con. Wow. I was not aware that Albuquerque had a Comic Con. Had no idea. So what's the big one? The big one is San Diego. I've never been to the San Diego Comic Con, but I have attended the Denver Comic Con twice. They have a pretty cool Comic Con. Denver does. I went 2 years in a row. It's obviously, I would imagine the Denver Comic Con is very similar to the Albuquerque Comic Con, just in size. I would imagine very, very similar. In size and in activities. Every year it's growing. Well, that's good to know. The 1 year, this is actually really morbid. This is very morbid humor, so I apologize. 1 year in Denver, it happened right after the Aurora. I can't say Aurora. Aurora. Remember the Jetsons? They had the son Elroy, that cartoon, the Jetsons, Elroy. I have a really hard time saying that. Anyway, it was right after that. It was the movie theater shooting, and it happened with the Batman movie. Well, our Comic Con was soon after that, and there was outrage amongst people that individuals were dressing up downtown because the guy, I guess he dressed up in this crazy, what did he have? He had on like a gas mask or something. So people were dressed up going to Comic Con, and that caused a little bit of controversy because it happened so soon after the Aurora shooting. Aurora. Yeah, I know how it's spelled. It's not, I just can't say it correctly. Okay, so what the big news, I guess, amongst Republicans over the weekend was, yes, he dressed up as the Joker. So obviously for Comic-Con, people are dressing up like characters, like comic book characters. And because it happened so soon after the shooting, some people were a bit outraged because of that. Ron DeSantis. So Ron DeSantis announced over the weekend that he is going to be dropping out of the presidential race, which I think is a very good choice. I respect that he did that. He said that if he, after Iowa, if he felt that there was any chance that they would be able to prevail and win, then he would continue on. But he just didn't see a path forward, a path to victory. And he said, it seems as though the Republican Party wants Trump. That seems to be what the voters want. So I don't want to take any more time or resources from people if I just don't see a path to victory. He also went ahead and put his full endorsement behind Donald Trump. I think it was a really good move on his part, not only for the country and for democracy. That feels so cheesy. I said that to be cheesy. Not only for democracy, but for himself politically as well. I think it was a big mistake of him to even enter this time around. The realization that him and his team had after the Iowa caucuses, I think many of us had before. It's just not his year. People want Trump. They feel like Trump was gypped out of 2020. They feel like it was owed to him. And it's just going to be Trump. He's going to be the nominee. And if it wasn't obvious before, it definitely became obvious after the Iowa caucuses. And I think it was a smart move for him to endorse Trump. So it looks like they kissed and made up. Trump has said publicly it is time to officially retire Ron DeSanctimonious. So Ron DeSanctimonious is retired, and so is Ron DeSantis's campaign. So both things are retired. I think it was smart politically for him to endorse Trump. Well, one, I don't think he really has a choice. Just given the sheer numbers, he doesn't have a choice. But also, first impressions matter. And I do think that DeSantis can come back and try again in 2028, but he's going to have to get back in the good graces of Trump voters. And you don't forget your first impression of someone. And yes, we do have a first impression of him as far as being a governor, and everyone likes that. But campaign DeSantis was a disaster, and it was just cringe, the entire thing. And him and Trump feuding, Trump has a lot more leeway feuding with Ron DeSantis than DeSantis has feuding with Trump. And I think he made a mistake. He should have kept his support behind Trump. That being said, him dropping out of the race and endorsing Donald Trump was a really good first step to get back in the good graces of Trump supporters. So I think it was good just for the GOP in general. I also think it was a smart political move on DeSantis. Although I did hear that there are some major donors behind DeSantis that are not too happy. I don't think they've been happy with the entire campaign. So that's what I'm hearing. I think that people really thought that Ron DeSantis, he was going to take that popularity that he had as a governor and it was going to translate into his campaign. And again, that probably could have happened, but not in 2024 when Trump has a very large base. Not only that, this is actually, it was a smart move too, because now it's making Nikki Haley look even worse. Why? Because DeSantis was second. He wasn't even third. And what he said, okay, he came in second in the Iowa caucuses. So he was at like 21 or 20 point something. And Nikki Haley was third. She was at 19. And Ron said that he didn't see a path to victory. He's in third. So if he doesn't see a path to victory, Nikki Haley has no shot. And she hasn't backed out just yet. So I also think it's genius because it's making her look not so hot. And I'm okay with that. Fun P says DeSantis needs to learn to walk in heels and smile like a human. It was just his personality was so awkward. Like he needs some kind of media training or I don't know, some kind of training. I just don't think it was his time. And I think they really jumped the ball and they're paying for it. I actually there were times where I'm going to be honest with you, I felt really bad for Ron DeSantis. Yeah, I do think that was the right move by backing up Trump. We also had, I don't know if you watched my last video, this was on it. Okay, so Chicago, obviously the three of the major sanctuary cities that are imploding and not able to afford their sanctuary problems now are Chicago, Denver, and New York. Denver's talking about having to cut budgets I used to work for the city of Denver, and I can tell you firsthand, they ain't got no money. I worked with them a long time ago, but it's pretty much known if you work for city or state or federal, maybe not so much federal, I don't know, but city and state level, you're kind of used to having to squeeze whatever tiny budget that you're allotted. So to see that they're having to cut budgets even more to different social services and infrastructure programs around the city is rather jarring. So, New York City, Eric Adams announced that he was going to have to do about a 5% budget cuts to all agencies across the city. The mayor of Denver, Colorado, has said up to 10% budget cuts across the entire city. Chicago is imploding. And although the mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson, he hasn't announced budget cuts quite yet, although he did have a pretty pretentious, not pretentious, he did have a pretty it there is definitely some tension in the air. He had an interview recently where he was asked if he was going to be raising taxes on local citizens in order to afford the migrant crisis. He refused to answer that question. He did not answer it. I will say what he did bring up, though. He did bring up the fact that Chicago is getting rid of tipped wages. And this is one of the things that Brandon Johnson basically prides himself on getting accomplished. So Chicago City Council voted 36-10 Friday. This was over the summer to phase out the city's tip credit, a move that will require restaurants there to increase the wages they pay tipped workers by 67%. So this is essentially taking away the tip wages. And what this looks like on the surface, this looks like a big justice to people that make tips. But if you have ever had a job where you make a tip wage, you know what this actually is. It's the same increasing minimum wage scam. This is a way for them to just get more tax revenue out of their citizens because yes, the paycheck to these tipped workers will look bigger, but actually they will be taking home less money. People will be tipping less. They'll feel I don't have to now because they're making a minimum wage. I just don't think that this is a very good thing at all. And it's scammy. And it's scammy because it's made to seem like they're really helping the people. They're helping those poor tipped workers, but really it's just a way for the city to get more tax revenue. If you're making $2.13 an hour, you're not able to be taxed as much as you are making whatever the minimum wage is. And yes, you're supposed to declare all of your tips. Well, it does automatically declare your credit card tips. It doesn't automatically declare your cash tips. So people can still give you cash under the table. That's what they don't like. They don't like that. There's really no way to check if you're actually claiming everything. Yeah, they will be paying a lot more taxes off the paycheck. So they'll be able, essentially, they can track your money more to make sure that you're paying all your taxes better. That's in reality what it is. And it was so telling because it was the same exact, I wonder if I have it for you. Oh, I don't because I cut off that part. But it was the same exact interview where Brandon Johnson was talking, where he was being asked if he was going to raise taxes to pay for the migrant crisis. He refused to answer it, and then he started bragging about this. So that should just go and tell you everything you need to know, that he would bring this the minimum wage or the tipped wage workers in the same interview that he's being asked if he's going to be increasing taxes. Let me see if I can find the first part of that interview. It's really funny. Because that kind of just shows you where the mind is at when they're doing things like this. See, in California, they did it a little bit sneakier. because they just said they were raising everyone's minimum wage. They didn't really single out tip workers. I don't have that interview. It's on a different video that I have. But essentially, he's just, the mayor of Chicago is just being asked over and over again if he's going to be raising taxes, and he just completely avoids the question. So what's happening in Chicago right now is they're completely out of money. They can't build new shelters, but they keep getting people. So now their shelters are just getting really overcrowded, and people are sleeping and hanging out in warming buses, and they also still have people in the O'Hare Airport. But again, this was in one of my last videos. If you watched it, I go a little bit more in depth. I actually have that video and what I posted earlier. But so there are now rumors that the mayor of Chicago is suffering from panic attacks because of this issue. So all these mayors, what they're freaking out because they're running out of money. They're having to cut services. They're going to the Biden administration asking for help, asking for federal funds, and the Biden administration is basically saying no. So they're getting pushback from the Biden administration. They're getting buses of all of these migrants. The citizens are getting pissed. They're getting angry because they're seeing what's happening. And they also have to run cover for their party. So they can't say close the border. And that's what's really frustrating. If all of these mayors would have gotten together and just come together and say, okay, you guys, we all need to call in Joe Biden. All of these governors, all of these mayors, if they would have gotten together and said, we need to call in Joe Biden to close the border, I guarantee you that would have been a lot more effective than what's happening right now. But no, we can't do that because we're puppets. We're partisan hacks. So anyway, fast forward. I'm gonna play you. It's over a minute. It's a little bit long, but it's really interesting to hear the entire thing. So this is a local Chicago podcast called The Chicago Way, and they're talking to a local journalist. Well, she was a local journalist. She lives in Florida now, but she's a very well-respected local Fox News journalist called Anita Padilla. This is what they discussed on this podcast. They're talking about Mayor Brandon Johnson.
Sit here and tape this. It's getting cold. To dive into that at this point because it's as we sit here and tape this, it's getting cold and snowy in Chicago, and Brandon Johnson has got his hands full to deal with that. But you've seen it. You have seen people, your community starting.
No amount of antidepressants can cure him of this problem.
No. He certainly was feeling the malaise.
I know it's so true. And I actually, you brought it up. I was going to bring it up, and I thought,
panic attacks. The mayor's panic attacks. Oh, can we talk about that?
Yeah. Can we talk about that? Because two sources told me that he has been in the hospital for these panic attacks, and he is stressed out. Because this is a big job for him.
He wasn't ready for it.
He's not ready for it. He is not ready for it. He's not a leader. I'm sorry. He's just not a leader.
He's not.
And, a leader, brings people up and supports them. And the Chicago police are still waiting to see where that comes from. But yeah, he put in a good superintendent. But I still think that he needs to prove himself to the police. Where does he stand on that? But this immigration issue, boy, this is not helping him at all, this situation. And, when you call yourself a sanctuary city, you call yourself a sanctuary state, guess what's going to happen? Don't blame Texas, because Texas, if you look at what they're dealing with, they have a massive influx. We don't even show the videos on television. The amount of people that are just standing around, and now they're desperate, because what happens when people don't have money or they don't have food? They start breaking into things. They start committing crimes. They start working for the cartels. They start doing human trafficking. They start becoming victims of human trafficking. So they had to do, what are they going to do with all these people? They had to get them out of their city. And
She's absolutely right. And if you look at interviews with Brandon Johnson, you can tell like he seems stressed. He's stressing. Actually, you know what? I think I do have that interview for you so I can play it a little bit, but you can tell whenever he's talking, the guy is stressed out. So, obviously we don't know if this is true. It's a rumor, but I wouldn't be shocked. And I feel bad for these governors. On one hand, yes, they did declare themselves sanctuary cities, but who could have foresaw what's happening right now? So in that sense, I have a little bit of sympathy. But then it's like, you know what? All of you had the opportunity to band together. What you need to call them to close the border, because what they keep doing, they do the same thing. They say they need more money. They need more money. That's not going to solve your problem. That will be the shortest little Band-Aid fix in the history of Band-Aid fixes, but it's not going to solve the problem. All that is going to do, you give them more money, you fund the issue more, you are just going to incentivize more people to come over the border. Because why do you think they're coming? They're coming because of sanctuary cities. These mayors and these governors are creating policies that are attracting people to flood our border. And then when they flood our border, they're like, whoa, this is unsustainable.
To help pay for the migrants.
Then close the border. For some reason, this feels quiet. So if you need to turn up your volume, do so. I don't know why this feels quiet, this clip. But this is that interview I was talking about where she is trying to get him to admit, or trying to get him to answer whether he's going to raise taxes or not, and he won't answer. Again, if you need to turn up your volume on this clip, it feels like the volume is low on it.
Here's what I've said.
To help pay for the migrant crisis.
Here's what I've said repeatedly. This is an international crisis.
And we've
that
heard
requires,
you say that.
Okay, so then you know the answer then.
Well,
the
no,
federal
because the
government,
answer I asked is, are you adding a
is,
tax?
The answer is the federal government has to do its job.
And what if we don't?
Well, look, there are 30,000 Ukrainians in this city right now who sought asylum, who were refugees. What's the difference between that crisis and the crisis that we're experiencing now? So this is not an unprecedented demand. There were services that were attached to individuals who were seeking asylum from the Ukraine.
From the Ukraine. Okay, so what he's doing here, I cut it off. But what he's doing here is he's saying they brought in all these refugees from the Ukraine and they gave them aid, so they need to come and step up and give these migrants aid. And he does kind of have a point there, but guess what? They're not coming to help anytime soon. They're not. They're not going to give you aid, so your next best thing is probably to call on them to close the border if they're not going to give you aid. And you can see he's getting a little unhinged. So, not to make fun of anyone, that's not at all what I mean. I'm not making fun of someone if the rumor is true, if he's actually having panic attacks. Not at all, but come on, man. As Joe Biden says, come on, man, call on the border to be closed. If all of you got together and called on it to be closed, it would be a lot more powerful than going and begging for money. But that was the same interview with, about a minute later, he talks about how he is getting rid of the tip wage, like he's proud of it. So it was that conversation where he talks about the tip wage. And to prove that lady's point even more, that is essentially what's happening in these shelters. And it's happening in New York and in Chicago, where these shelters are just getting overrun with people, and winter is here. And a lot of these people were under the impression that they were going to be able to come to the U.S. and just start working. And that's not the case. And the majority of the people that are coming over now are war-aged men. So you have all of these men, and it's now winter. They're not used to it, and they're in these overcrowded, dirty, smelly shelters, and they're not working. They're just idle. So naturally, what is going to happen? They're going to start committing crime, and that is happening. You have people. There were 18 people at a shelter in New York City that were arrested. Here, what's this story? 18. Yeah, there was a shelter stabbing 3 days ago in New York City on the Randall's Island shelter. Police said 18 people were arrested Thursday after a migrant shelter melee on Randall's Island sparked chaos among asylum seekers and left at least one person hospitalized following a stabbing. Cell phone videos shared with News 4 showed a man struggling on the ground as officers surround him, eventually getting him cuffed along with more than a dozen other migrants. The witnesses said he saw the security guard take out and stab the migrant. I don't know if I believe that. Police could not confirm whether a security guard was involved, but did say the victim was stabbed in the neck. 18 people in total were arrested. Yeah, I don't know I haven't seen any video of a security guard being involved in that situation. So I don't know if that was just to take the blame away so that it didn't look like it was just them, or so I don't know exactly what's happening with that. So that happened in New York. Back to Chicago. Group of newly arrived migrants allegedly behind a string of burglaries plaguing Chicago suburb. A band of newly arrived migrants who may be a part of a bigger crime ring are allegedly behind a string of retail thefts and burglaries plaguing a Chicago suburb. In all, 47. Whoa. I wasn't expecting that. Sorry, I'm reading this one for the first time with you. Okay, so in all, 47 migrants have been arrested since October in the village of Oak Brook, about 20 minutes west of the second city. Chief of Police Strokis told Fox News. Many of the incidents targeted Macy's. Poor Macy's. On January 13th, Jamie Abando Andrade, 32, allegedly tried on a $395 jacket at the department store and walked out without paying for it. According to a news release, police found approximately $3,000 worth of suspected stolen goods in his car, as well as rolls of tinfoil and a fake driver's license. Shoplifters will sometimes line bags with tinfoil to get around that detection device in stores. When I was 17 years old, my very first job was at a Kohl's department store. Very depressing first job. But my very first job was at a Kohl's department store, and people would do that. They would also come in with filler. We called it filler, where they would just they would take cardboard. They would bring in big bags and then take cardboard and fill their bags with the cardboard so it looked like their bags were filled. And then they would go into the dressing room, bring a bunch of clothes, take out all the filler, and then fill their bags with the clothes. So, Kelly, hi. Hi, Roberto. I like Roberto. So, people would come in with bags filled with cardboard, take a bunch of goods, go into the dressing room, try the stuff on, or put the stuff in their bag, and then you would go into the dressing room and you would see a bunch of tags that they took off the items, and then you would see just cardboard everywhere. And they shoplifted. One time when I was 17, working at Kohl's, most depressing first job ever, I worked in the shoe department and the juniors department and the women's and sometimes kids. When I was 17, it was my senior year of high school, and a girl that I knew came in and shoplifted, and it was actually really uncomfortable. I had to tattle on her. I was a tattletale. And one of the main reasons I did it too, well, one, it's the right thing to do. And two, one of the reasons I did it, I think she kind of had a drug problem. She was starting to hang out with the wrong people, and she came in with a group of kids and they stole like all this stuff. So I had to tell on her and she got caught. But she did that thing too where she came in with the filler, and I went in the dressing room right after she left. I was a little suspicious. So I went in and realized that she took a bunch of stuff, and our security caught her. She might not have known that I was involved, which I think is good. I think I wanted to keep it that way. But people do it. And, you know, when you bring in this many people and they don't have jobs, I mean, we make it easy for them. You guys think about it. We make it so easy for them because, yes, Kelly, I was a snitch. We make it easy for them because if you watch the news, what's all the news? All of our major cities are soft on crime. So they're like, sweet, not only are they letting me in the country, now I get to go to all the soft on crime sanctuary cities. We're essentially making ourselves a sanctuary for the world's criminals to come and do crime. How funny is that? That's what we're doing. All right, let's read the rest of this. Officers also found an ICE electron. This is what a clown show our country is. Okay, can we just backtrack for a second? Let's just backtrack so we can feel the full effects of how absurd this story is. Okay, so this 32-year-old allegedly went to a department store to try on a $400 jacket. He walks out with the jacket. They then find him, okay, with the jacket in his car along with $3,000 worth of suspected stolen goods and rolls of tinfoil and a fake driver's license, okay? Not only does he have the $3,000 worth of stolen goods, the $400 jacket. Did I say $300,000? $3,000 of stolen goods, $400 jacket, tinfoil, fake license. He also had an ICE electronic monitoring device that he allegedly cut off in his car. These retail crimes involving migrant offenders are part of a bigger criminal enterprise, and we are working closely with our federal partners to thoroughly investigate these cases. Okay. This person knows what he's doing, okay? Because he's got the fake ID, he's got the tinfoil, so he knows what he's doing. Cut off the monitor. Has other stuff in his car. Isn't shoplifting defined as reparations? Yes. And okay, not only is shoplifting reparations in 2024, not only is it reparations for people that are already living here, it's also, so not only, you guys, this is liberal logic right here. This is liberal math, okay? Not only is it reparations, but so not only do we owe people here reparations, we also now we owe everyone in the world reparations and free healthcare and free sex changes. So anyone in the whole world that wants to come to the US and get reparations and healthcare and sex changes, you can now do that. Yeah, don't know if you're aware. I think I had a prior video on it, but in California, not only can you get free healthcare if you're an illegal immigrant, you are also eligible to receive a free sex change. So yes, you can get a free sex change, but only if you're an illegal immigrant. border crisis is just another form of inflation. That's true. That's true. Liberal math also says 2 + 2 = 5, just so you guys know. In October, Venezuelan migrants Luis Mendez Gomez, 28 years old, and Frank Montes de Villa, 23, were arrested after allegedly they stole nearly $3,000 in high-end cosmetics from Macy's and granted pre-trial release. A week before that, another pair of Venezuelan migrants were arrested and charged with burglary and retail theft after they separately stole clothes from the store. The police chief says, "We want everyone to be aware of the increase in criminal activity from the migrant community coming from Chicago." Chicago, a sanctuary city that does not cooperate with federal authorities investigating crimes by illegal immigrants or allowing local law enforcement to inquire about a person's citizenship status, has received around 34,000 migrants since 2022. In December, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, who previously supported sanctuary city policies, pleaded for federal help in tackling the crisis at the border. Without real significant investment from our federal government, it won't just be the city of Chicago that won't be able to maintain this mission. It's the entire country that is now at stake. Okay, Brandon Johnson, then call on them to close the border. Close the border. They won't do that. He won't do it. They're allergic. They can't say it. They can't say it. They're allergic. The Oak Brook Police Department has been working to crack down on shoplifting as the mall as one of the statewide retail crime task force. Migrants are only the latest trend in the ongoing suspected theft ring. Police believe members of an organized retail theft operation may have approached migrants in Chicago and offered to pay them to commit the thefts. Oh, that's smart. Okay. We do think it's a part of something bigger. 21 people were charged with stealing merchandise from DuPage County stores just in the first 2 weeks of 2024 alone. Interesting. That makes sense. I bet that is what they're doing. I bet some of these local gangs are paying newly arrived migrants to go and steal stuff. They do that with younger people all the time. Why wouldn't they do that with migrants too? People that are desperate for work. Of course they are. It's actually kind of smart in a purely criminal way. Nessie said, "How many years before these migrants get the right to vote?" Oh, I'm sitting on my leg and it's asleep. Well, they're already trying to do that locally. So essentially, what they're trying to do it locally, and eventually they will try to do it federally. I will say though, okay, let's look at New York, because New York tried to do this and it was blocked. But they're trying to do that in many jurisdictions. See if I can get the latest about it. Yeah, so in some jurisdictions, they can vote in local elections, but that's also why they want to push work authorization. Okay, if you think offering migrants luxury hotel rooms, free meals, laundry service, transportation, healthcare, and immigration is excessive, just wait until they can vote. Democrats are pushing to give non-citizens the franchise and local elections in New York City, Boston, and other municipalities, as well as statewide in Connecticut. The number of migrants pouring across the southern border has hit a record high, according to the data released Saturday. Illegal crossings soared 21% over the previous month. On a yearly basis, the figure has reached 2.48 million. Democrats may feign shock and distress. Don't be fooled. Dems see the newcomers as their guarantee of a permanent voting majority in local elections. Not years from now, after the newcomers become citizens. Right now, Mayor Eric Adams' rhetoric is typical. He warns that the overwhelming number of migrants arriving, 16 to 17,000 a month, will destroy the city, but he's also leading the legal effort to turn migrants into voters. Adams and other New York Democrats pushed President Joe Biden to expedite work authorization for them. They said it's about making migrants self-sufficient, maybe, but Dems have another powerful motive. The fine print of New York City's Our City, Our Vote law, enacted in December of 2021, says that anyone with work authorization who has been in the city for more than 30 days can vote, even if that person entered the country illegally. Biden's recent action, fast-tracking work authorization for Venezuelan border crossers, who make up about 41% of the Big Apple's recent arrivals, will make tens of thousands of them eligible to vote under city law as soon as they obtain their working papers. And make no mistake about it, that the Democrats, what they will do is as soon as they get their work authorization, they are going to make sure they get them registered to vote. They're going to get them registered to vote. They're going to tell them who to vote for, and that's exactly what is going to happen. So just know that when they're pushing for work authorization, and a lot of these local elections, by the way, that's local, that's not federal. Once they're there for 30 days and they have that work authorization approved, now they can vote. And what they will do is they will try to gaslight you. They will say, well, they're already here. We need to get them self-sufficient. We need to get them voting. Or we need to get them working. I'm sorry. But what is that going to do? Again, that is going to incentivize even more people to come. And what is it actually? Is their real intention just to get them voting? Yes, 30 days. They're also going to gaslight by saying, we can't afford to keep paying this. You know, if they're able to work, then they can be self-sustainable and take care of themselves. Well, that's not necessarily true. Just because you're working doesn't mean that you're entirely self-sustainable. There's a lot of people that are working that are using a lot of services. And a lot of the migrants that are coming over the border are lower income working people, and they're in some of our country's most expensive cities. The irony of it all is just mind-blowing. It's the cities that love to call themselves sanctuary are some of the most expensive cities to live in. So where are they going to live? But it's an if, because what's happening to a lot of these is people are pushing back and suing. So let's read even further. That is, if New York City's voting law is allowed to go into effect, that's a big if. The law is tied up in court. So in New York City, they are tied up in court. A group of Republicans led by Staten Island Brooklyn President Vito Fasila sued, arguing the state constitution grants the right to vote to every citizen. A Staten Island judge brought that argument and struck down the law. but Adams' law department is appealing that ruling in a higher court, arguing that the state constitution does not specifically prohibit non-citizens from voting. Adams has a shot at winning. Vermont's top court ruled in favor of allowing non-citizens to vote in municipal elections, even though the Vermont Constitution restricts voting in state elections to U.S. citizens. So they can vote for like mayor, very local stuff like that. California and Maryland also already permit municipalities to enfranchise non-citizens. The Boston City Council is debating allowing newcomers to vote, including migrants who recently came across the border illegally and have temporary protected status. In Washington, D.C., Democrats rammed through a local law in November of 2022, allowing non-citizens, even foreign embassy employees, to vote as long as they've resided in the city for 30 days. In Connecticut, Democrats want to amend the state's constitution to allow non-citizens to vote in state and local elections. My question is, if all of this happens, if we have no border, if we have no laws, if it doesn't matter, if non-citizens can vote, what country, why do we even call ourselves a country? We're not a country. What's the point of citizenship even in the first place? It clearly doesn't matter. It doesn't matter now if you get on a plane. You don't have to be a citizen. You don't have to have a passport. You can get on a plane. You can go through TSA. You can come in the country. You can work. You can vote. They're pushing so that you can buy a firearm. They're pushing so that you can sign up for the military. They're pushing so that you can be a police officer. We have no, what's the point of laws? What is the point of a country? There is no point. And that's a really good question to ask people that are pro-open borders. What's the point of any laws? And that is why what you will see when you see activists out there putting stuff in their heads, egging them on, who are those activists? They're the same type of people that are in Antifa. They're anarchists. They don't want borders. They don't want laws. They want it all to crumble. All of it. They don't want prisons. They don't want any of it. And that is true. If you look at a lot of the local journalists and you look at the activists that are putting things in their heads and egging them on to do things, it's a lot of Antifa type. It's the same usual suspects. That's why it's important to look at what's happening locally in your area and to make sure that you're letting your voice be heard. There was a part that podcast that I played you earlier, that local Chicago podcast. You know, a lot of these governments, they're very corrupt. They only care about themselves and their own political party and their own political future. But they get away with this stuff because they can. And nothing will change unless the people push back and force change. Obviously in the correct way. But nothing's going to change unless the people Anyway, nothing's going to change unless people push back and change. So look at what's going on in your local government. See if they're trying to pass this, and call them and let them know how you feel. You can do that. You can call your local office, even if it's just an intern. You can email. You can call. You can do any of that, and you can let them know how you feel about this stuff. But they get away with it because the majority of people have no idea that this is even happening. People are not aware of it. That's also why Democrats are so good, because what they're going to do is exactly what I told you. So that's probably what the plan is, right? Let's get all these people authorized to work. Okay, now they're authorized to work. Let's track these people. Let's make sure we're getting them registered to vote. Let's make sure they know exactly who to vote for, because that's exactly what they can do. They can tell them exactly who to vote for, and they will. They'll be like, especially when the stakes are this high, if you vote Republican, they're going to deport you. I'm dead serious. You vote Republican, they're going to deport you. You better vote Democrat. That's going to motivate you to go out and vote. Yet us American citizens were like, where are my sports? And Democrats know that. That's also why I've seen several interviews with migrants at the border and in some of these shelters. They think Americans are lazy. They know that they can outwork you. They will outwork you. They will outvote you. Amending the state's charter is a multi-year complicated process, and it's facing stiff opposition from the Republican minority in the legislature. House Minority Leader Vincent Condolora calls non-citizen voting outrageous. For New York City, suicidal is more accurate. Adding some 800,000 non-citizens to the 5 million registered voters in the city will have an impact, even if newcomers don't always vote as a bloc. Nora Moran of United Neighborhood Houses, a New York nonprofit, predicts non-citizen voting will make political leaders more responsive to the needs of newcomers and their neighborhoods. To the extent more responsive means spending more, that will be a disaster. City spending on migrants already exceeds the budget of fire, sanitation, and parks departments combined. We are past our breaking point, Eric Adams, the mayor, said. Letting non-citizens vote will dilute the political power of all other New Yorkers who are the real victims of Biden's borders. Tell Adams to withdraw his legal appeal and stop pushing for non-citizen voting. Voting is a privilege reserved for citizens. Once immigrants follow the law, become naturalized, and swear loyalty to this nation and its Constitution, they should not be entitled to vote. I like that. Once immigrants follow the law, become naturalized, and swear loyalty to this nation and its Constitution, they should not be entitled to vote. Or until they do that. They shouldn't. It's funny because you can almost see the long game. So the whole thing leading up to 2022 was voting rights, right? And even leading up to 2020, that's what they said. It's all about voting rights. We want everyone to vote. If you have a certain color on your skin, what is this? What's going on here? If you have a certain color of your skin, then you obviously don't know how to get an ID. Therefore, we need to scrap IDs to vote. So that's what they do first. We're going to scrap using your ID to vote. And we're going to tell you it's for democracy. But really, what we're doing is we're actually disenfranchising you. We're actually stealing your vote. That's what we're actually doing. But we're just going to tell you it's for voting rights. And we want to make sure everyone has the right to vote. But really, we're taking your right away. We're taking your vote away. And it really is. When you read it that way, it's outrageous that we would allow people who have not become naturalized legal citizens to be able to have a say in our policies that our tax dollars are used to pay for and our livelihood, especially at a time when public safety is now politicized. Our borders are now politicized. Things that used to be common sense. Things that used to be basic functions of our government, they wouldn't even be a question. It wouldn't even be anything. Now, all of a sudden, those things are politicized. Now, all of a sudden, those things are up on the ballots, even the local ballots. It is outrageous, but that's what they're trying to do. And you better bet if they do that, you're going to have those little political Democratic activists out there with their clipboards, making sure that all those migrants are registered to vote, and they're going to make sure that they vote right. You bet you're behind on it. I guarantee you. It's exactly what they're going to do. So hopefully the people that are suing over this, they got it temporarily blocked in New York. It looks like they weren't as successful everywhere, but we'll see what happens with all of that. Crazy. All right, you all, that's just about everything that I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining. That was a good live. I'll be back. Huh? Danny, what did you just say? I think your keyboard is broken. Someone was saying that I should have had a Stanley Cup. I guess this is about as big as a Stanley Cup. If you go to Wawa, well, they give you free ice water everywhere, but if you go to Wawa, you can get a giant free ice water. So that's what I did. All right, you all. Everyone, have a really good day. Again, thank you for watching. I'll be back live tomorrow again at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. So hopefully I'll see you all there. Have a great rest of your Monday, a good start to your week, and I'll see you later. Okay, bye.